Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
To order,
Well, we weren't here for some reason. I don't know what it is.
welcome to the March Madness edition of the CEDC board meeting. You've all received your copy of the Encyclopedia Britannica. I ask everybody who is presenting or reporting today to help us find the corresponding page when you make the presentation. It's sometimes hard to follow along, so help us find where you are in the packet, please.
Page 634.
Good, so we'll start right in with committee reports, and the first committee report is audit and finance. Oh, there's Tara. Welcome.
So we had our full meeting and full audit discussion, went over all of the changes from last year. We had a lot of positive changes, and I feel a really great report on that. But we do have to, we approved it in our committee, but we do have to approve the financials and related correspondence. So did everyone look through that? Are there any questions?
Page 10 of your packet. Mr. Chairman. Message received.
Can I get a second?
Second. Could just make a note that the report was done without.
UHY.
UHY did the report and it was done without any problems, right?
There were no findings over internal controls of financial reporting and no compliance findings with regards to your federal funding. So we did both a single audit and a basic financial statement audit, and there were no findings either.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks, Nicole.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is there anything else you need to report to us as a board?
No, I mean, like I said, there were no findings. It was a pretty straightforward year for the organization. So all in all, a great audit, and I appreciate everything that management did to make it an easy year to get through. Thank you.
Thank you. On to the loan committee report, Rachel Libby.
First up, we have the portfolio dashboard.
Okay, I would say that's about a third of the way through your packet.
Yeah, after the financials.
On the backside. Okay, we have 3 clients on our past due list. The first one is a restaurant, and we're going to talk about that one in greater detail further on. The second one is a manufacturer, and he did bring in a loan payment late last week. Loan client C is also a restaurant, and the owner emailed me last night that her past due payments are in the mail. Are there any questions on the portfolio?
There's no questions. We'll need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. So our first loan is a modification.
That's correct. And this is the restaurant that we were discussing earlier. I finally got a hold of the client. They agreed to our offer to rewrite this loan. The balance is just under $33,000. The original loan amount was $60,000. We offered them a 6-month note and amortization, so their monthly payment would be $636 a month. That would save them roughly $150 a month over what they're paying now. We came up with a 6% interest rate because the current loans, one is at 5 and one is at 7, so we split the difference. We will have a mortgage on the commercial property that's already in existence, although we are in 3rd place. And we want to keep that mortgage, and so we would ask Andy Howard's office to hold this closing.
This is the old Bond restaurant.
Correct.
Anyone have any questions? So the motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
And then our next one is a Green County.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So the very next sheet in your packet, this is a loan request from Bentley Lawn and Landscape located in Wyndham, Greene County. They are a landscaping service. Their request of us was $35,000 as an SBA loan, amortized over 72 months, 7.75% interest. Monthly payment of $609.40. This is an equipment purchase and working capital loan Our collateral being a lien on business assets and the personal guarantee of the principal. That's Bentley Lawn and Landscape in Greene County. Thank you.
Just to give you an explanation as to why we're making a loan in Greene County is we are the SBA micro lender intermediary for Columbia and Greene County. And we from time to time are asked in partnership with Greene County Economic Development to do a micro loan using federal funds in their footprint. So it's not, and we obviously never use Columbia CEDC county loan funds outside of our county.
Does anyone have any questions on this? Concerns? If not, I'll need a motion for approval. Motion. Anyone second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried.
Madam Chair, in your packet is a Columbia Economic Development Loan Program. It's a sheet that was added at the end. It's a legal size paper. I just wanted to share with you the work that Martha has done over the years and now with the help of Steve continues. If you look at 2014, our total outstanding loans were $1.4 million. Our total outstanding, I'm sorry, they were $1.9 million before the loan loss allowance, the yellow highlighted line. And now they're 2.4 million. If you look down below and take the 2.4 million and look at the 800,000 that we still have available to lend, the loan fund is now at 3.24. In January, we drew down 275 from the SBA, so we've just hit $3.5 million in aggregate loans between the SBA and CEDC, combined of loans that are on the street and money to lend. So just want to congratulate Martha and Steve for their work in building our loan portfolio. On the left, you'll see that since 2014, we have not taken any interest on either of the loans for purposes of operations, and put $700,000 back in the loan fund. When you do the math, you say, well, wait, there's a little bit missing, but that is the reserve accounts that we're holding for the SBA, which is $250,000 at this point. So it does tie out, if you do the math quickly and you say we are at 3.5 to 3.24, and you started at 1.9, where's the 700,000? That 200 is in the SBA reserve accounts. So congratulations, Martha and Steve.
Great job.
Nice, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone with any questions generally about the loans or lending? We'll move on to the governance nominating committee. Sarah Sterling.
All right, first we have all the charters and the bylaws. They're finally, thanks to Andy's hard work in order. The bylaw amendments are first. It's amazing how much updating and changes happens since we did it last. I'm not sure when that was, but we've added a few things.
Page number.
I think we're not to any pages, but it's back about the last corner.
Right after the audit. So
Says one on it.
Halfway through. Okay. In the middle of your package, you will see page one. We put in ethics officer as a separate entity. We just changed a few things, just updating.
I think the big thing is we needed to separate the audit committee and the finance committee. The ABO wants to see that, so the bylaws separate those two. And then we also removed workforce as a standing committee. It can be a special committee. The idea being that should the board want to pivot or add another committee in the future, you won't have to go back through and change the bylaws. And so by doing that, What we also did in terms of membership is we made the executive director of the Columbia Green County Workforce Investment Board an ex officio member, so that they can serve on that special committee for workforce development. I also think if down the road you reach a point where you've, really workforce development, if you think about it, has been operated as a task force. And so kind of like what you did with broadband and things like that. So by having it be a special committee as opposed to a standing committee in the bylaws, should you look to modify that or at some point close that committee, you don't have to go before the membership and have this big to-do about getting rid of a committee, because it really is kind of a specialized thing. The other committees are more of what is dictated by the ABO in terms of governance of the organization. Those were really the big changes. A couple of things we just conformed that the meetings obviously will be done in accordance with the public officers law. So we made that standard throughout. That also allows us to pivot in the event the legislature changes those things as they've been doing recently post-COVID. We're just going to basically say we're going to follow the state public officers law, which we are required to do.
Yeah, question. I noticed we left the Workforce Education Committee charter in there. Now, if we were to form another committee at some time, would that have a charter?
Yeah, I think it's a governing document for any sort of special committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think of the other charters, the biggest one would be governance and nominating. We put in a structure, a protocol of how to present new members and a lot of things that were just not spelled out for everybody. So save these in your files. They're also online. Everything's on the website. So for these new ones, will be on the website once we approve them.
Right, and I realize it's a lot of paper. I apologize for that. But again, with the separation going now to the charters, by separating the audit and finance committee, we now have separate charters for each of them. And then in so doing, we went through all of the charters and just made sure that they, conform to each other, conform to our bylaws, and conform to the most recent pronouncements from the ABO. That's in essence what we've done.
All right, are there any questions? We'll be doing these slightly separate through the
We did
Bible.
them all.
What's that?
The motions, we don't need individual charter motions.
Well, the bylaws are,
Let's
Separate.
do the bylaws.
Bylaws separate from the charter.
okay, we'll do the bylaws first. Can I have a motion?
I'll move. Changes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will do all the charter amendments by consent decree. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we come to nomination for new board member. The after all these. Is it Christian Lopez, who's the owner of Coyote Flaco? And his resume is here. We feel he would be an excellent addition to the board. He brings restaurant experience.
Got 10 pages from the back. 15.
Let's take a minute to look that over.
Finding it?
Sorry, no, it's here.
The spreadsheet stuff is pretty cool.
Right in front of the financials.
There? Okay.
he's been the owner of the local one, since 2021, but was connected, he took over the business from his father, so he's been in the area for quite a while. I've certainly been a patron of the restaurant. And do we have any questions? I need a little bit more time.
No, I'm pretty impressed with the guy. Hard work.
Yeah,
And the amount of money we loan restaurants, I think it's good that we have somebody that knows about
Yeah.
restaurants.
yeah. It's been hard to get somebody in that category.
We made it through the pandemic with all of these
Yeah, good point.
new ideas and, yeah.
Good point.
Nice to see it from, don't take it wrong, but nice to see it from outside of the city, so that's kind.
You can abstain there.
I'm thrilled. Make a motion, go for it.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. All right, back to committee member appointments. All of these, there will be a group approval for this, Rich Nesbitt and Rachel Puckett for audit and finance, which is here on Zoom. Rachel Levine moved to governance and nominating. And then committee chair appointments, Ken Leggett for the loan committee and Rachel Levine for governance and nominating. Right. So I will be heading out. All right, can I have a motion to approve all this appointments?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it for me.
Thank you. And Sarah, thank you for your devoted service as chair of the government. Before we leave governance and nominating, I believe that the bylaws amendments and the charter amendments both need to be approved by the general membership. And so we'll have a brief business meeting at the annual meeting on April 30th to approve those. Also, committee chairmanships. I'd like to recommend to you today a change in the chairs of a couple of the committees. Sarah will be rotating off at the end of April. There's a meeting schedule of the Governance and Nominating Committee on May the 7th. And we won't have any regular meeting of the board during April. So now is the time we need to name a new chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee. And I'd like to recommend to you Rachel Levine as the new chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee. And the problem with that is that Rachel's currently chairing a loan committee. So we would have a shift in committee chairmanships. So Rachel would become chair of Governance and Nominating Committee, and Ken Leggett, I'd like to recommend to you to chair the loan committee. Ken's not here today, but Ken chaired the loan committee prior to Rachel's service in that capacity. Ken had to step back due to a family obligation, but now is back and eager to return to that role if you were in favor of that. So I'd like to recommend that we appoint Rachel as the chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee and Ken Leggett as chair of the loan committee.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Questions? Good. The President and CEO's report.
Good morning. In your packet on page 8 is the balance sheet from our audit. About halfway down, you'll see total assets of 4.825 million. That is up over $350,000 from last year, primarily because of the increase in borrowings with the SBA. for our SBA loan fund. If you look at our liabilities, 2/3 of the way down the page, total liabilities, $1,964,000 versus $1,640,000. Again, about $350,000 increase in liabilities resulting from the loan fund. Our total net position is $2,750,000, which is an increase over last year of about $16,000 when we were at $2,734,000. The major difference is in our unrestricted funds. We now have about $75,000 more in unrestricted funds than we had previously. So what we will take a look at in a moment is a report that will show you basically how stable our balance sheet is over a period of time. On the back side of that page shows our operating revenues. The way the accountants book this, because of the federal single audit, is our operating revenue, and then at the bottom, our county appropriation. So it is a little bit difficult to follow, but you'll see our total operating revenue is up about $15,000. Our expenses are up about $20,000. Our operating loss as a result is $5,000 greater than last year. We did very well with bank interest now that interest rates have gone up, and we made sure that the appropriate accounts were getting market rate interest. And our appropriation from the county remains the same, showing that last year we had a negative $17,000 change in net position, and this year it's $16,000. If you go back and remember, you authorized us to take $25,000 and expense it by adding it to the loan loss reserve. So, you know, if you added that 25 back in, we would have shown about a $50,000 net income. And are there any questions on the audit? If not, if you could go about 10 pages in from the back, there's a page, a document that is folded so that on a legal piece of paper. And basically, this is our balance sheet and profit and loss for 10 years. If you look at our total assets, we started at 3.4 million. Then we kind of leveled off for 3 years in the 3.2 range. And we got back into the 3.5, 3.6 range. And now we're at 4.8 million. This is just taking the data from the UHY audits over the years and the Koski audits prior to their merger. On the profit and loss, in 2015, we wrote off significant loans from the loan fund resulting from both the then fish farm and a proposed hotel out in Greenport. In 2018, we received $360,000 from Dinsburg Food as a result of them not moving forward with the project that they had proposed out in Ghent to build a $14 million facility because of public dissension over the project. They had purchased the project from CEDC for $1, and by not building it within the time frame that was required and abandoning the project, they had to pay us back the then appraised value plus 7% a year for the intervening years. So that's how we had the jump in 2018. The loss in 2020 was the result of the fact that we made significant grants during COVID, And we received PPP 1 and 2, but that was, you booked it when you got it, and you corrected it the next year when you got it forgiven. So that, it's really an anomaly with respect to income and expense. The most interesting thing to me is over 10 years, our net revenue is 12,000, averages at 12,005. And last year, as we pointed out, it was 16,000. So again, a very stable, steady operation that's very obviously sensitive to government grants. And I think from the finance committee's standpoint, as we look into this, doing a 3 to 5 year budget, and also looking at the future impact of the loan fund as it continues to grow on the balance sheet is something that we're going to take a look at. With respect to our current financials, if you have found the page that had the folded document and just go a few pages ahead of that. We did give you the full report versus the collapsed report. But again, it's the first, this is through February. So our total assets and liabilities really have not changed. With the only significant change in the balance sheet is the additional drawdown of the $275,000 of SBA money, which results in our total asset going from the 4.8 that we had at the end of the year to 4.953. So there's really no significant change in the balance sheet. With respect to income and expenses for the year, again, I apologize that we have the uncollapsed version, but just above the bottom of the page, it shows gross total income, 214,000 versus this year versus 196 last year. So we're up $18,000. And if we flip over to the bottom of the next page, actually the total expenses, you have to go to the back of that next page. Total expenses are 165 versus 219, primarily because of the fact that we haven't replaced Jessica, as well as we have not really begun to fund our new initiatives. And we are going to have to spend the educational component to that with respect to programs that we've supported at the college, as well as some additional work that we're going to have to do this year on broadband. So our net operating income through February is $49,000. We had budgeted 22, so we budgeted a negative 22. So we've had a net change over budget of $72,000. Again, it's early in the year, and we aren't always able to anticipate when our expenses are going to hit the balance sheet. Going back to the agenda, there's nothing else, Mr. Chairman, on the finances? If we could get a approval of the February financial report.
Any questions on any of the financial reports presented? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
We have had 2 requests for letters of support recently. At the very back of your page, of your packet, the second page is a letter from Hudson Development Corporation. As you know, we've partnered with Hudson Development Corporation over the years on a number of initiatives. Most recently, we had loaned them $200,000 that enabled them to purchase from CSX a 3-acre parcel of land that gave them access from Front Street to the CAS property, which otherwise was landlocked. as a result of them having the ability to acquire that parcel from CSX, they were able to sell the property to Ben Fain for $3 million. At this point, HTC is moving forward with a project to acquire the J.L. Edwards School for the purpose of creating a community center. And Chris Jones, the president of the board, has included this letter. The second paragraph, we have an offer on the table with the goal of reimagining this important centrally located business as a center for excellence for educational courses, training, childcare, and for city government to be under one roof. Merging city government in the building would enable the city to sell 3 buildings which they own for economic development purposes. Columbia Green Community College, Bard, Culinary Institute, childcare operators have an interest in pursuing this location should the school district accept their offer. And they are indicating, as our county partner, would we be willing to submit a letter of support. As you may recall, several years ago, under Chairman Finger and I got a little bit of criticism from a group out in Livingston about authorizing a letter of support for a development project without board approval. As a result, my understanding of my latitude is I'm authorized to do letters of support for grant funding, where an organization or a business is looking to get grant funding, but if it's a support of a project, that it needs to come to the board. We have a second letter for you to consider from the hospital in a moment. We are also aware of a developer who is interested in purchasing the school and also has made an offer, Penrose Development out of Philadelphia, for affordable housing. When I got back to Chris that we needed to get board approval and our meeting was this week, she felt that it would be too late because their proposal had to go into the school district on the 18th. And in fact, this evening, the school board has on their agenda a draft resolution authorizing the acceptance of the offer dated March 18th from HTC to purchase the school. So I don't know if at this point, if it's moved, if they're going to vote to approve it this evening. But we did have some issues that we discussed. I discussed with the chairman and with Andy. What do we do when we have 2 competing organizations for the same project, when both will be coming to us after one is successful over the other to seek guidance on state and federal grants, economic development incentives. And our thought was, particularly with the school district, where once the school district votes to award this this evening, if in fact they do, the next step would be for it to go to public referendum. We also understand there may be some zoning issues that the city council will have to address for depending on what the development ultimate proposal is, which would then put us in the situation of telling first the school district, then the electorate of the city of Hudson, then the council, and then the mayor what they should be doing, when in fact it's all but fait accompli in this case. But where if there was still a competing interest, it would put us in a difficult spot. I think we certainly have been a partner with HTC over my tenure here. I don't know that we had that type of a relationship prior to that. I think there was a bit of a disconnect between the county and the city on economic development. As you know, we do manage and operate the City of Hudson IDA along with the county IDA. And I think that we look forward to working with HDC if they are selected, to work with them to get the necessary grants. We've also provided them with some names of bankers as they were looking into getting the funding that they would need to renovate and operate the building. I know Martha Lane is on their board, and we are in regular contact with their leadership. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you'd like to have some discussion or direct me as to how I should proceed.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from anyone with a comment.
So Mike, if I understand this right, so basically, it's gonna put us in the middle in a pickle if we side with anyone. And I understand where you're coming from because we had previous experience.
Being in the pickle.
communication. Yeah, well, that's what it's gonna be. But it's basically the school's issue at the point, they own the building. It's their point of what they decide to do, sell it to whoever they deem fit. So until that happens, we really can't do anything. It's my,
Well, I think what we've done,
Right.
we've advised both of them as to what we know
Sure.
about programs.
Right.
We're neutral.
correct, neutral, we're neutral territory.
But to go out and say that, you know, we want you over the other, when other people have the
Not a
responsibility
good idea.
to make those decisions.
Yeah, not a good idea.
So is it too late to write a letter anyway or not?
Well, they're voting on it tonight, yes, but I do think it does raise the ongoing issue of when a development project arises. In the last case, it was a letter that we gave to a developer of the gas station down in Livingston because they demonstrated they were going to generate $4 million of economic development with the construction of this facility and the
Right.
jobs that they were going to create. And we didn't take into account that there were citizens who were opposed to the project. And basically, it was the town and the planning board who should be making those decisions.
Right.
And, you know, our influence isn't as wide or impressive as we would think or hope. But I do think that, you know, it's best to leave it at the initial stage to the government entity that has the responsibility of making those decisions without appearing to put pressure on them one way or another. Because we're here to help whoever is selected
Correct,
by the school board.
correct.
So where does that leave you with getting back to her?
I'll get back to her today. You know, I think at this point, because the action is today and it appears you don't put in your meeting packet a resolution to approve it unless you have the votes to approve it. You know, I think in this case, it didn't matter, but I do think it's more of a policy issue, you know, for the board.
And you had already let her know that,
We had to have this
yeah,
discussion.
so that she knew that she wasn't gonna have a support letter for today.
And I don't see the buy-in from Hudson either, so I think
I think
we
that's
just should
critical.
not be
Right.
in the business of taking sides.
So to your point, Mike, I'm getting the vibe that maybe this is a larger policy question.
Yeah.
Like, do we
Yeah.
need to perhaps set forth a policy that we just don't do these letters?
Right.
We don't support anybody. You can come to us, we'll help you the best we can, but we're not gonna take sides in any of these issues. And that would, I think, make it easier on the staff to just write out a box saying, that's our policy not to do these letters of support.
For project
Yes,
development.
yes, that's what I would be afraid of.
And, you know, when we're
Because
looking.
there's always somebody on the other side.
It's a PR threat, too.
Yeah, yes. And it doesn't matter where they are, we are pro-business, we are pro-jobs,
Yeah.
we are pro-anything. It doesn't matter whose name's on the side of the project. And unfortunately,
And with,
in our avenue to get it out there and carry someone's flag pro-business, we get caught in the middle accidentally.
and
That's
with,
what we don't want to do.
and with respect to, letters of support for grants, we only do that if the, person seeking the grant has control of the property.
Right.
For instance, right now, the Restore New York grants, are being, considered, applications are due. We have 5 organizations in the county, seeking Restore New York grants. We don't want to be the one to prioritize that. That's the state's responsibility to review the application. And the way that grant program works, it's a grant to the municipality. So the town, village, or county has to be the applicant. And so if we're writing a letter of support and we find the town board in the town that we're serving, that's where the project is located, is opposed to it,
Right.
you know, where does that put us in the situation of the Board of Supervisors who provide over 50% of our revenue?
Correct.
So, you know, we understand the sensitivities of it, but, you know, if you If Sean, who manages and directs and leads Alana, comes to us and says he'd like a letter of support from an arts group, we'll give it to him. Just as the Crandall, PS 21, McCaden Theater, or any organization that comes, because again, the letter isn't specific to the project as much as it is, this will help the economy of Columbia County.
These policies, however, are not in writing, correct?
No.
So why don't we work on putting together a proposed policy for the board to
So we
look at
refer to the
next meeting?
governance committee?
Yes. But let's now go back to the specific request from HDC for a letter of support. Is anyone interested in doing that, saying yes or saying no? What should we do?
I would suggest that we don't, at this point, let Mike have the conversation and.
But I
explain where
don't
we
want
are.
it to be perceived that we voted no.
No,
We
correct.
want it to be on a policy
Yes,
level.
yes, that we are reviewing our policies because of
this
situations
act.
of this action.
And that, we
We're
will.
fully supportive,
Here,
of it, but not.
if this is passed tonight, we're ready to meet tomorrow to figure out how you get it done.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, she's asking, and, enthusiastic about plans to re-energize economic growth, and we're enthusiastic about that, but just not with regards to the specific building.
Well, there's so many players here, and, there's so many, issues with respect to, first getting the public to vote to approve it, getting the funding, presumably the funding they have from the sale of CAS is sufficient to purchase it. But the funding to deal with the asbestos renovations.
Yeah.
And fit up, is the next step.
Yeah, they got quite a few hurdles to jump first.
Right.
And we have some ideas for both them and the housing group, if they had been successful, to provide incentives as well as grant funding from the state.
So what sounded to me like Mike has absolutely how to handle this in a kind conversation. Well, your suggestion, we are going to review our policies, how to handle this going forward.
Just one quick question, Mike. HDC does get the purchase of the property. It stays 501c3.
Yes. And their point was that the city would come in and take space there and free up various buildings that the city owns that they no longer need for offices. And we would work with the city to put those back on the tax rolls.
So pursuant to CEDC policy, we'll decline to provide a letter of support for this project. Everyone comfortable with that?
Yes. Yeah. The next one, which will probably be a short conversation based on our new policy or our stated policy, is Columbia Memorial Hospital wants to build a ambulatory care center in Greene County. I participated in a call earlier in the week with some leaders from Columbia County. I know others have had similar calls with the consultant. And, I think what we talked about are, what are the issues relating to healthcare in both counties, and it's, it's transportation, is availability. And, I think this will strengthen Columbia Memorial, or CMH, which in turn, by having additional resources and assets, will give it a stronger footprint. And so to that extent, it is something that will benefit Columbia County, even though the facility itself will be in Greene County. I don't know if you see this as different. Obviously, they control the property. There's no other hospital or healthcare organization looking to compete directly on this particular project. I think that what was discussed on the call was it will make the hospital stronger because people will not be going north or south. And they believe that people in Saugerties will be coming here because by the time you get to Kingston and wander through to the hospital, this will be a faster to get here.
This will be a surgery center though.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to authorize the president and CEO to provide a letter of support to CMH for this project?
So moved.
Well, I'd like to just discuss, I mean, are we just reopening the same kettle of fish that we just closed? And like, if we're not doing, letters of support for certain groups, but we'll consider other groups?
Should we
I
wait?
mean, it doesn't, then who do we consider?
Yeah, I think
I think this is a worthy project, don't get me wrong, but I'm thinking, is it easier to enforce a strict policy than a policy that's gray?
I would agree. I think that there'd be an opportunity to provide support for this project at a later date after the board develops a consistent policy.
I have to agree with that.
Kathy, you comfortable withdrawing that motion? Did you make the motion?
No, Rick did.
And I see it very
I don't
differently, but
count.
I agree, Rick, I think it's so different. And a little, nudge to say, yeah, we approve that, but I would agree, let's develop a policy and stick with it.
And I think that, the purpose here is to get a policy in place sooner than later, so we'll work with the governance committee to bring this to you at least, if not at the next meeting, the following meeting.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna jump right to housing. We continue to provide support to the Board of Supervisors Affordable Housing Task Force. We worked with the Board of Supervisors in January to submit an application for the state's accessory dwelling unit program. We partnered in an application with RUPCO, which is Rural Preservation of Ulster County, but now provides housing support and services in 3 or 4 other counties, including Greene County. We had frankly been looking for an opportunity to work with RUPCO on a project so that we could build some relationships and partnerships. And so this opportunity came up. We understand that the state is about to make an announcement, but they're waiting for the governor's office to put together the press release. So you may be reading about us soon. And it's a $2 million potential grant, but we haven't received official notice about its award. In addition, we are monitoring the state budget closely with respect to affordable housing. And we're in the process of coordinating with Chairman Morrell, the inaugural meeting of the Columbia County Land Bank, which CEDC was actively involved and responsible for its creation. Moving to broadband, there's a lot going on with broadband. You may have seen either from emails from us or others that the state has opened its challenge process. It's open to the public through April 18th. We have found some glitches in it. When you go into it, sometimes you put in an address and it zooms in into another address, but we're working with the state on some of those bugs. We have taken a second look at our list and compared it to the most recent list that the state has put out for unserved and underserved addresses. We're at about 1,100 addresses, but we haven't taken the 350 off the list that were funded either with the ARPA money in Ghent and Austerlitz, and will hopefully be funded in Canaan and New Lebanon from the USDA grant. If we take those off, we're down 700 or 800 addresses. Right now, our list in the state's list, there's about 200 addresses that they think are served and we don't, or vice versa. We have sent that list out to the 4 providers and are asking them to update that list based on whatever new builds they have done since we last had them go through that effort. Rachel has been very helpful.
I can tell you preliminary, going through the list that you said, there's 147 addresses that we can take off.
So that's great. And that's only one provider.
Because there's 60 of the green addresses that you sent, we can now serve 60 of the yellow addresses that you set were currently awaiting licenses, so they've already started. And then 19 of the orange addresses that you sent were willing to take on.
So, you know, I do think, as we whittle this down, what's going to happen is two things. One, about half of the 1,000 addresses we're looking at are more than 300 feet from the road. And it's not clear whether the state in their BEAD funding, which has not been released at a level that would answer this question, will they build to the house, or will they make the homeowner or business pay from the 300-foot current approval? But I think the other thing we're gonna find is those are gonna be last mile, because there's a reason they haven't been built, and at least 25%. And as you know, there are people who have been asked to pay up to $20,000 or $30,000 to connect if you're a mile from the road. We're in a very good position. We've worked closely with the state, and we have also addressed several of their other initiatives. So we believe that for the funding from the state from the feds through the state to complete as many of the remaining unserved or underserved addresses as possible is on target. We did look at their list of what are called community anchor institutions, which are libraries, firehouses, town halls, hospitals, and the like, schools. They had 99 on the list. We have 152. They had no town halls or firehouses in any of the counties on the eastern corridor of the county. I don't know if they thought that Taconic was the state line or what, but we're going to add those and work with them. We're not here to put Clegg lights on anyone. We're here to get a complete list. One of the things we can do is we can take all the schools off the list because they're served by EPAC through BOCES. They get their broadband through BOCES statewide. And in any event, the list doesn't mean they're unserved or underserved. The list means the state put out, these are the locations. So now that we get our list cleaned up, we are going to ask the providers to tell us, do you have service there, whether they're using it or not. The third area is the state in February 1st issued a RFP for 3 rounds of funding to create a municipal broadband entity. The idea is that you would get up to $30 million per county or per applicant, could be a town or a city. And you would build a system that would allow overbuild, duplicate the infrastructure that currently exists, primarily to bring competition to the community where in most cases in the county, you only have one provider. There's some overlap where you have some residents and businesses have access to 2. But basically, we've looked at there are only 4 other municipal internet providers that are municipalities in the state. They were started several years ago. There's one in the Southern Tier where there is a entity called the Southern Tier Network that's been putting together municipal internet systems for the last, since 2011. There's also the Development Authority of the North Country, and they're responsible for the other 3 that were just applied for. Erie County right now is looking to participate in this funding application, and they announced that they are looking to do 400 miles of fiber so that either smaller companies or existing providers could peel off of that county or infrastructure. $30 million is the estimated cost in their application. They have 970,000 people in Erie County. Our position is that we're not qualified based on the requirements of the application without spending several $100,000 of consultants and connecting and partnering with Crown Castle or First Light or some of the mid-mile providers. And we would then have to be in the position of owning and operating it or contracting out to someone who would be a third-party operator. And, when we look at that for 600 addresses that are left, we really can't recommend to the Board of Supervisors that we proceed. I have several residents who have been monitoring this closely who are very upset that, disappointed, I guess was their word, that I reached this conclusion. I did respond to them in writing, and we're planning to meet later this week or next week. And what the state has told us was the third round of this funding is to partner with an existing internet service provider, so that I have advised all 4 of the existing providers in the county that if they have a project where they believe partnering with the county would get them additional funding that they wouldn't otherwise be eligible to get, we'd be happy to discuss that with them. Obviously, the county's issue would be if 2 providers wanted to get money to do the same thing. But until, let's see what the village of Nichols spent $10 million to do 35 miles of internet, and they pick up that they could serve 800 homes, and all but 250 of those homes already had service. I don't see the state giving us the $30 million plus that we would need to do it based on a population of 70,000 when you compare it to the 900,000 in Erie County. And without bringing up war stories, I did say last night to the Economic Development Committee of the Board of Supervisors that it's tough enough to run a nursing home. Can you imagine what it would be like to run a cable internet company? And so, you may hear that I'm open to anyone's idea that how this might work, but I have talked with providers. I've talked to the 2 organizations that are running the multi-county network in the North Country and at the Southern Tier. I've talked with 3 middle mile companies. I've talked to our own providers. I've talked to the Regional Planning Commission in Lake George and in Albany, who have been assigned by the state to help identify these opportunities. And I've talked to the economic development organizations in the other 7 counties in our region. And I haven't found anyone that says, oh, you're missing the boat here. There's an opportunity to get these funds. What worries me is I did go online and attempted to get an application so I could see what was really involved. I answered 4 questions. One, all honestly, and it immediately kicked me out and said, you're not eligible. So I went back in, created another application and answered them all yes. And they took me through a process where the level of detail would require us to hire, as I said, a couple $100,000 consultant. And then you'd have to go and contract with people, and there's no ability to get the money up front from the state to do this work. So, if you hear about it, it's probably someone going to tell you in October of this year during the election cycle that Columbia County left $30 million on the table for a grant they weren't eligible to apply for, which the state would never have funded, but they won't tell you that second half of it. So I know we're being recorded, but I understood that when I made my comments. We're open to anything, but it's just not practical.
Yeah, people just don't understand all the things that go into it,
Any questions on broadband? Otherwise, to wrap this up, Mr. Chairman, in time, we do have a speaker for our annual meeting. The meeting is Tuesday, April 30th at the Falls, catered by Georgia Ray Kitchen. And Dan Rickman, the District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration, is going to be our speaker. We've worked with Dan for a number of years when he was the Deputy Regional Director, or District Director. He covers the 34 counties in upstate New York that include Columbia County, as well as counties in central New York, the Mohawk Valley, Capital Region, North Country, and Southern Tier. He directs over $300 million of SBA funding throughout those counties. He's a former entrepreneur. He formed a payroll processing firm in Texas. And he also provided HR compliance solutions to small businesses. He's an upstate New York native, and he is enlisted in the Army. He enlisted in the Army in 2000 and served combat operations during the Iraq War. Dan's a great speaker. He's a great advocate. We have a great relationship. What we should have mentioned during the loan committee report for one of the quarters for last year, CEDC and Martha and Steve beat out Pursuit, which provides microloans statewide. Our volume of microloans depends on or triggers how much we generally get for our technical assistance and how much we allow us to draw down. And that's a great partnership, and we thought our board and members would benefit from understanding better the relationship that we have with the SBA as their long-term micro lender in Columbia and Greene County. Any questions?
Thank you. The consent agenda is a grouping of routine, non-controversial items for approval. However, if any member of the board wishes to have one of those items pulled out of the consent agenda and discuss, we can do that. This is your opportunity now. Just say so if you'd like to pull something out and discuss it individually. Otherwise,
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I actually wanted to bring up the evaluations. If you want to talk about the outliers on there. I mean, there was a couple ones and.
Then we'll take the evaluation out. So the consent agenda is now the minutes of the last meeting, the 2023 statement of internal controls, 2023 investment report. Dave, your motion applies to those. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Just looking at the board performance evaluation, there's a couple outliers. The top of the list is, our shared understanding of the mission and purpose of the authority. Is there any expansion on that we could just put out there to alleviate any concerns?
What do you think?
I should read the letter, right? That's what we're talking about, the letter that I read last meeting.
Well, certainly, if anyone does feel that way, please contact me. We are going to do board orientation for our new board members. We're waiting for the ones that we're approving today and electing at the annual meeting to join you. And at any time, if it's uncertain to you why we're doing something or we think we're out beyond the scope of the mission of the organization, we're always happy to discuss it.
Another one towards the bottom was our sufficient opportunity to research, discuss, and question, and prepare before decisions are made or votes taken. That was an outlier. I'm wondering, does that have to do with like the time that the emails get sent out? Is that where that would lie? And I'm just, it's a general question. If anybody has any say in that, or if they'd like more time, or how we feel we could get more time.
Yeah, I know for the governance nominee, we did address that is to our policy to make sure that everyone has enough time to consider. I wouldn't say applicants, but
Candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It's always a work in progress here, so I think dissent is good. And I'm just amazed every time I go to the website about how much information is there. And I think it's clearly laid out and you can find things easily, all the old minutes, everything, all our policies, everything is on there.
Great. And then the last one I saw, there's a clear, somewhat agree, disagree, that the measurable performance goals to contribute to accomplishing the mission. There was 3 somewhat agrees and 1 somewhat disagrees. So that's nearly a quarter that didn't agree with that. So how are we putting out our measurable performance goals, I guess would be the question. Is like, do we have an actual list of the goals, or is it kind of building the ship mid-flight?
Why don't we review that? We'll look at what other similar organizations do to get the best of Carson. Those of you who remember Friday nights when he didn't have a show. And we can aggregate those into best practice and bring it to the governance committee and bring it to the board long before we have to complete next year's report.
Thank you, Larry. Is there a motion to approve the evaluation?
Take a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Good. The logo. What did you think? The floor is open. You have in front of you the results of the survey. Thank you, everyone, for expressing your opinion. And as you can see, there's a consensus that there's a partial consensus that the logo doesn't necessarily need to be flushed down the toilet. That tweaking would be in order perhaps, and that for the most part, the logo conveys, at least to some degree, the identity of the organization and what we do. But I'm interested in your comments.
Two questions. Do we know the history behind the selection of 7 squares plus a 7-point star?
No. Betsy Ross was.
Well, I didn't have a chance to look back. I think it had something to do with the townships in the county, that 7 represented something in the county, like the townships.
Yeah, it's a handsome design, but it just, I don't know what's behind it. And secondly, I would offer, and I always thought it was just fine until I keep looking at it, being maybe from the fashion business, I look at Columbia, and I think Columbia sportswear. But so would it make sense to choose Columbia County? To really say that this is the county, it's Columbia County. I know that our CEDC does not have the word county in it, but it might make sense to add county to the end of it.
Scaffolding on that for a minute, that's not the logo, that's the tagline.
What?
And there's a difference between the symbol and choose Columbia.
Oh, I understand that, I got you, I'm talking, the symbol's different, I'm saying just this right here, choose Columbia County.
I think I've done a lot of logo work in my career, and from my perspective, I think we really should open this up to the public, not just the board. People sitting around this table have there's a different perspective to it. And I think there should be either focus groups conducted with people, in the community, who are members, who are interested in CEDC, like the people would be great at the annual meeting, for example, if you did a survey to find out about it. When I started on the board, I looked at that logo and I had no idea what it meant. It means nothing to me. I mean, I see it, it's a nice symbol, but what does it mean? And I'll give you the example of when I got to Columbia Green, we had this flame. Well, that's great. Flames are, the flame of knowledge, the flame of light, all this kind of stuff. It's a very tired symbol in higher education, and also has incredible religious overtones to it. So anyway, we just went through a whole logo study this past year, and I think came up with something really terrific. But this is something that's near and dear to me, and I would love to be more involved with you, Mr. Chairman, if I would be of service.
Nominate you head of the committee.
I, for 30 years, have been in branding and design. So this is something that I've worked with clients taking, Goldman Sachs Public, and Picky Bose, and Estee Lauder, and Adidas, and all sorts of big brands. So I could talk about this for the next 3 months, because that's typically how long you would work on a logo, would be 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And I think exactly what you're saying, the focus groups, but I would love to collectively kind of distill what all of our responses are, and then come up with some options of like
responses, I think.
Yeah, and there's choose Columbia is the biggest thing that I see here, where really everyone refers to it as CEDC. So what's the logo, what's the bug, what's the hierarchy of it, how is it used, what are people familiar with? If they're familiar with the bug, then you don't want to abandon everything. Is it refreshing the logo and having different lockups and clear guidelines on how and where you use them? And all those things.
Right, well, I just, the trouble I have with not your background at all in this is not having an alternative. I think I personally I could maybe choose between alternatives, but just as whether that's good or not, I have no
The
idea.
point is, when you're driving down the street and you see a truck go by and it has the swoosh, you immediately know what that is. It's Amazon. You see another truck and it has a dog, with the ears coming back, I mean, you know it's Target. I mean, it's that symbol that resonates with people and says, oh, okay, this is really cool. This is CEDC.
Well, and I think that, I often don't use CEDC because, only inside baseball people know what that means. And, I look at, to the south, our, organization in, Dutchess County is Think Dutchess. So I think, I can see where somebody said, well, choose Columbia, but certainly open to it, because I think what it'll do is it'll drive more of a discussion of who we are, and what we do, and are we who we want to be. And the logo might evolve out of that. We haven't done a strategic planning session, since, COVID. We did a brief update, but, we do, all organizations, particularly organizations like ours, do get mission creep. And, also with limited resources, need more direction at times to, fulfill the need. I think we've been driven by crisis since COVID and, and by issues that have arisen, whether it be workforce, housing, broadband, and, it would be good to go through that process.
If you just Google image search Economic Development Corporation, you'll get, tons of existing logos for other economic development corporations. And you can see that some just, really stick out more than others and what they've incorporated as far as.
I was saying, mentioning like the tagline that you said, like looking at the logo at first glance, you think the company is Choose Columbia, and then, it's a tagline under it. Like just even the hierarchy of how it's laid out was confusing. Like before I even joined, I just thought Choose Columbia was like the main part, and then like you get a second now we can zoom in and look at it.
Well, and in some places we have another tagline. What is it for life?
Business for life.
For business for life.
Columbia Forward.
What do we get wrong?
Okay.
You need to get it down through either probably a committee, a group of us probably, come up with maybe three choices and then put it up for a vote.
What about how the staff likes it a lot?
What's that?
Like what we were talking about before, the staff loves this.
Staff seems to like the way it is.
Because the label don't like
Maybe just a
change.
refresh.
I was like, I think of it for like years.
I didn't tell them that we don't money for raises if we pay 25 grand for a logo.
You gotta get it down to a place.
So my purpose in going through this exercise was primarily to begin a dialogue about our external communications. What's the message we're conveying to our audiences, who are our audiences, and how do we communicate with them? And Dave, I think your suggestion is a good one. I'd like to put together a small working group to have some discussions. Broader than just the logo, but the logo would be part of it as well. And Dr. Trummer, if you're willing to be on that, Rick
Only if
Rector,
Rachel is.
Rachel,
Yeah, would love to.
Rick Rector, Mike Malinsky. If there's anyone else who wants to be involved, just say so, and we'll make you part of it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I love Brandon, that's a true fact, but I don't know if I know.
All right. And we may want to consider having a representative of the staff. And Mike, that would be up to you to designate.
Chris isn't here today.
Well, Riley, you were on social media.
Yeah,
You
I think-
were,
yeah,
I think
I would-
Riley's like.
Riley would be the.
We're gonna meet 4 times a week.
This wouldn't be a committee, this wouldn't be a committee that will extend into the distant future, but rather sort of a task force to identify what needs to be discussed, what needs to be done and come up with some recommendations for the board to consider.
And I think we have multiple audiences, and I don't mean to think we have to have different messages for different audiences, but you have to have different emphasis of the same message.
But you still need to have something that tells people what we are, and what we do.
Any other questions, comments, criticisms, or complaints?
Or I have a comment.
Okay.
Why don't, I was listening to this whole thing. We send out newsletters, why don't we put a question on the newsletters to see about who sees the logo, who can recognize it, like Carly said, do you recognize this dog? Do you never recognize, do you know what this logo is? Just to see whoever our audience is, if they do recognize our logo. In that sense. I mean, a lot of people don't, and they have no idea. They don't look at our logo, but some people do. And that way we can know if our target audience knows our logo or not.
Thanks, Ken. Anything else?
I got one more thing, because, always something. I'm going into my 3rd April here on the board, so it's time for me to do my annual Beat This Dead Horse of getting a digital version of these packets up on the board or Zoom, something so we can easily follow. Because I think today just was another example of how difficult it is to keep in line with what we're talking about. Whether it's an iPad or something connected for people, again, on Zoom, if we have more than one person, just they can swipe through, like we're all on this page and you can mark up and highlight. I mean, it's 2024. Let's kind of like push this technology along to our benefit and make it a lot easier for us to pay attention, because it's hard for me.
Riley, we can talk about that too.
Yes.
This is the 3rd year I've been saying that.
We've come a long way since we were.
Are there any
Thank you,
members of the public online who would like to be heard? Maybe not.
I agree. I think that would be helpful to have something you could follow through online.
Thanks, Rich. With that, I would like to close by making a motion to adjourn with a salute and a thank you to Sarah Sterling and Dave Finger, who are attending their final board meeting, for their extraordinary service to the Columbia Economic Development Corporation. Sarah, you won't be at the annual meeting?
You will not.
So give Sarah a hug today.